Darian Durant joining us. Darian, post-holiday, still in holiday mode. What's going on around the Durant household?
Yeah, still in holiday mode because New Year's is coming up, right? So it's not completely over, but it's been good, man. Just seeing the look on the kids' faces when they get new toys and to be able to enjoy, unboxing them with them and just the excitement you see is just priceless, man. You have to have kids to understand, and all the parents out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Just the joy they feel. It's amazing.
You know it. What were your initial thoughts when you heard that the Riders traded for Maier?
You know what? I was shocked at first, but then as it settled in on me and I started to think about it, I look at it like this, and I'm not sure that don't take me to the bank with this scenario, but maybe Jeremy sees Trevor maybe only having a year or so left, and you want a guy when Trevor's done. You want to have a guy with some type of experience, a guy that has won some games that he's proven. And, you don't want to go into an uncertain situation, even though we all think that Shea Patterson can and has the potential to be the guy. You just don't know. And you want to have as many good quarterbacks in-house as possible. So I think that bringing Jake over, maybe having him learn from a veteran like Trevor, he's learned from Bo a little bit, but having him sit behind a high-efficiency guy like Trevor to learn the system. And, it gives him a shot for a starting job, in case Trevor leaves after a year.
What would be going on right now in this whole kind of negotiation, spot where, nothing in, I guess, for a month from now is when free agency opens, but they have a chance to kind of negotiate with them and get, ink on paper eventually. What would be going on behind the scenes right now from both sides, Darian?
I think for Jake, you're looking for the situation where you can play as fast as possible. I mean, look, he's a 2-year starter. I'm sure he doesn't want to go into a situation where he has to sit for long. No competitor does. And, I'm sure Jeremy's just explaining to him what they see as far as the future of Trevor is concerned. If Jake has an opportunity to step in and compete for the starting job after a year. And also Jake wants to know what are their plans with Shea Patterson. I mean, here's a guy that, became a lovable guy from the fan standpoint while he was starting. He won some games and he has the opportunity to potentially be the guy. So Jake wants to know, what are your plans for him? Is he going to get a favorable hand because he's been here? Am I coming to a situation that's worth it for me to sit or re-sign? And, it's a lot of things going on right now in negotiations. And, it's crazy that this early period that they have where they can talk to guys from other teams and tamper, so to speak, is interesting. But I'm sure it's a situation that, both sides want to be clear about what to look for going forward.
Darian, I'm going to give you a scenario. So you obviously have spent 99% of your career as the guy, as the starter. Are you better served having a guy behind you that is serviceable should, God forbid, anything happen to you and it can still help the team? Or are you served better by a guy who could, should you struggle a little bit, possibly push you out of your spot as the number one guy?
It depends on where you are in your career, right? If a ring is important to you, and it doesn't matter at this point if you're the guy and you want to make sure you go off and experience the feeling of being a champion, then you want to have a guy that can come in and win games and could possibly be the guy. But if you're young and you see yourself being a starter for the next 5 to 7 years, there's no way you want the threat of a potential starter behind you. You want a raw rookie or a guy who doesn't have a lot of snaps under his belt and that you don't feel or look at as such a threat. So it just depends on where you are in your career. And when I look at Trevor, I look at a guy that seemingly, just wants to win. Even though he wants to be the guy, I think winning and having a ring of his own is important. But in order for that to happen, you kind of have to have the best of both worlds. You need a guy that, because it's hard to play every game. So you need a guy with some experience, and you also need a guy that can come in and win. So you kind of want a mixture of the two.
As a quarterback at the professional level in the CFL, for Jake Maier, as well, knowing Mark Mueller, and then vice versa, Mark Mueller knowing Jake Maier, I don't want to say how important is that, because it's obviously important, but then it almost seems like a no-brainer that this is going to get done.
For sure. I think so. I mean, when you're a quarterback, you have to look at the type of system of the potential team you're signing with and who their coaches are. And, everyone thinks it's easy for a quarterback to just go in and learn a system, but it's one of the hardest things to do, especially if you're looking for some early success. You want to go into a situation you're familiar with. And so with Coach Mueller being there and Jake having that experience with him, he knows the system. It's the very first system he learned when he came into the CFL. So it's going to be the most familiar with Jake Maier. And it just seems like the perfect opportunity for him to go in a situation and, have a heads up because he knows the system.
If Jeremy has said to him, you know what, Jake, we see a future with you. Trevor's got a year, maybe 2 left. Come in, do your thing, pay your dues, learn a bit, grow. How patient is a young guy going to be with that kind of philosophy? Or is he just going to be, I want to get in there. I don't want to wait. I want to go.
I mean, I really think it depends on the situations around the league, right? I mean, there's no need for him to be frustrated in a situation where he has to wait if all the other teams are solidified. I mean, if all the other teams have their guy in place, their guys playing solid football, there's no threat of, him losing his job. I'm speaking on the quarterbacks of other teams, then it's best you sit in a situation where you can be the next man up. That's your best opportunity to play. So that's the situation you want to be in. So for Jake, I mean, when you're behind a guy like Trevor, who is in his late 30s, who, may be on his way out of the league, I think this will be the best situation, because if you look around the league, most teams seem to be going a little bit younger, besides Hamilton, but they're going a little bit younger. And, they're looking for young guys who are established. So for Jake being 27, you sit a year or two, you'll be 28, 29. You're still young in quarterback years, and you have an opportunity to lead a franchise for the next 5 to 7 years.
Let's shift. Before we go to NFL, I got to pick your brain on the college football fiasco that's going on.
Yeah.
This is wild stuff.
Yeah.
What's the most intriguing matchup for you going into the next slate here?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at the rematch between Ohio State and Oregon. I think that'll be the game of the week. 2 powerhouse programs, and a rematch from earlier in the season that I'm sure Ohio State is looking at the chomps to get back, another opportunity to play those guys. And of course, I mean, you look at Georgia, Notre Dame. That's going to be a good one as well. I mean, you look across the board, I think they're all going to be good games. But what I don't like is that the teams that get the bye, they don't get a home game. I mean, make it make sense. You play all year to get a bye and to be in the best situation, only to be in a neutral site game where half of the fans are from the other team. And then, the teams who barely got, I don't want to say barely got in, but the teams who got the home first round game, that's an advantage. And you saw that with Penn State and Texas and, these crowds, Notre Dame as well. I don't like how that's set up, because if you're going to get a bye and you put yourself in position to be the top 4 teams, you should get a home game.
Is there any possibility or planet or world that we hear the college football national champion Boise State or Arizona State? It just doesn't sound right.
No, that's not going to happen, man. I mean, you look at Georgia, you look at Ohio State. I mean, I look at these 2 teams specifically. I mean, just watching them play, they're just loaded with pro players, man. They have look up front, their secondaries, their receivers. I mean, Boise State just doesn't have the firepower to compete with these teams, let alone, the guys in the trenches to move some weight. So, they've had a great year, and in the past they've been a great Cinderella story. But I just don't see that happening because there are too many good teams. If it was just a one and done and they just had one shot, anything can happen. But, to go from, playing a Georgia or a Texas to Ohio State or Oregon, I just think it'll be too much to overcome for Boise State and Arizona State.
Yeah, I heard, I don't know if it was on ESPN or somewhere last week or the week before, and they broke down the difference in weight of the offensive, defensive lines from Boise State and Arizona to Texas and Ohio State. And then actually all the SEC schools. And it was just like, things are built a little bit different. What are you watching going into the last week of the NFL season?
Well, I want to see what happens in the NFC North for sure. I mean, Detroit and Minnesota. I've been speaking on Minnesota all year, and the way Sam Darnold has been playing, I really felt like they were going to be a threat. And as you can see, they're just poised to be the number one overall seed. So I'm looking forward to that. And of course, when you look at what the Chiefs have done, when everybody thinks that their roster is getting worse, they just keep plugging away and keep winning. And so I love to see that. So, I think the playoffs are pretty much set, the picture. And now it's just all about let's get to the playoffs and see if the Chiefs can do it again.
Oh man, I don't.
I know a lot of people hate to hear that, but
I don't want it, and I don't see it.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, we're in the era of once Tom Brady retired, I think we're just in an era of where quarterbacks are going to win 4, 5, and 6 championships. I just think that's how football is now shifting because once you get your guy, teams are locking these guys in. And if you get you a good one and you build around them, you're going to win multiple championships.
Should Minnesota sign Darnold?
Man, that's so tough because you know what? He would take up so much of the salary cap. Yeah. And I just don't know how much better he is than J.J. McCarthy. I know he's good and he's seasoned and he's been in some bad situations. But I think when it comes to the salary cap, you have J.J. for the next 3 to 5 years on a very minimum team-friendly deal. You can build around him. And I think if you sign Sam Darnold to $150, $200 million, you'll just hurt yourself when it comes to guys around him.
Part of me thinks that Sam Darnold seems, because he's really not that old still, he seems smart enough and he's been around enough dumpster fires in his short NFL career that he sees maybe taking a little bit of a haircut to stay around. The coaching is unbelievable. What he's done the last few years with Minnesota. And then all those weapons, he might go, hey, like you said, if it's about winning, right, Darian?
That's a great point. I mean, you're right. He's an older guy. He's been in numerous organizations. He's seen the good and the bad, and he's seen the worst. I mean, when you look at the Jets and the Panthers. So, I mean, he knows, I'm sure he values situations. And the situation he's in now with Justin Jefferson and Addison and, running back and great coaching, I think it's a great situation. But you always have to remember that whenever you have a first-round guy behind you, you just have so much, you have to be perfect because as soon as you start making mistakes, you can look at Kirk Cousins and I mean, we could all see it coming, but as soon as you struggle or the team is out of contention, you lose your job because it's a first round guy. First round guys aren't expected to sit. So, I would think about that if I'm Sam Darnold. You have a guy behind you that they drafted to play. So, I mean, your leash may not be as long. Even though you have a huge contract, so does Kirk Cousins, you're still not going to have, as long of a leash because it's a first-rounder behind you.
Right on. Well, let's see how it goes. I'm curious on how things finish in the NFC and just Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't have that on the bingo card when we started everything this year, but
I know. It's been good.
Talk to Arash Madani tomorrow. He could be head to toe purple when we talk to him. All the best. Have a good New Year's Eve and New Year, and then we'll chat next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Right on. There's the rider legend, Darian Durant, joining us here on the Sports Cage. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back,